Hi, my name's Dave Hillel from Ableton. I'm here at PSSL today to show you all the new Push. So when we originally designed Push, the thinking was that for those people who are using a computer to compose and perform music, we would aim to create a piece of hardware that would be an instrument that would allow them to essentially put their computer aside and do all that without necessarily having to think or touch the computer at all. So things like the ability to create rhythm, the ability to work with melody and harmony, to tweak sounds, to build song structure, they're all still a primary part of Push. The major changes, though, are what I'm going to go through with you now. And what I'd like to do is just start with the build. So Ableton have decided to take everything in-house. We are now building Push ourselves. And that's meant that what we've had to do is create the components from scratch. Two of those major things that we've adjusted now are the pads and the screen. The pads really have an amazing feel. I mean, we feel like now we've really set the standard for pads in the industry. Whether it's working with rhythms or playing more melody, harmony phrases on Push, we really feel like these pads just have that perfect touch and really feel nice, sensitive enough to do really intricate work when it comes to working with pitched instruments, but sturdy enough to really be able to bang on them for rhythmic stuff. The other thing that we've looked at doing here is to provide a screen that will provide enough detail to allow us to work in samples in a new way. And we'll get there in a minute, but some background on this screen. Most screens these days for music hardware are being taken from the mobile phone industry. That's a common standard. The issue there is that there's certain detail that you can't get, and the other thing is that they have certain lifespans. We've actually gone to a German luxury automobile to source this screen, which we feel gives amazing clarity and detail when either browsing, tweaking sounds, or viewing waveforms. And that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to push browse, and I'm going to take us to our browser so you can get a sense of the screen. One thing that we've changed here in the browser, which is pretty obvious straight away, is that user files are now at the top. This is because what we're trying to do is give people access to content that is theirs and it's personal, that they can go into and tweak. So if I go down here and go into my music folder, for instance, that I have, and I scroll down here through some of my various artists and albums, when I actually go through and go into the sample itself, and I can just tap the encoders to get to these various places in the browser. When I actually have that up here, it will browse for me automatically. All of this stuff will browse as I play it. And also, it will preview as I play it. It should preview as I play it. So everything previews when you're in there, and that's been added recently with the 9.5 update. The other thing, though, that we have adjusted to is the way that you can actually view all of this content. So if I go here and I load one of these pieces of music, what you now see here in Push is this amazing display of the sample itself. And I'm just zooming there on that sample. And I can get really fine. Find that start point in that sample. Let's just listen to that. If I zoom right out here, I see the whole sample. I'm just going to grab my endpoint and bring that right down. You can just see with this detail that we get in this screen what's actually possible. So let's move that start point. Let me grab that endpoint again and just bring it down. Okay, so now I have a loop that I can work with. I'm actually going to go in here and I'm just going to crop that loop, so I'm just working with that section of the sample. And I'm going to set my metronome here and just play this to the metronome so I can show you something. Now what you'll notice is that when I'm playing that to the metronome, it's out of time. One thing that we've added with the new push is the ability to actually warp in push. So when I have this sample loaded, I can just as easily set that start endpoint, crop that, and then click this warp as one bar. When I click that, what that's going to do is warp that for me. So when I do now play the metronome back and play that sample, let's speed that up a little bit. It's now playing to the tempo. And that's available because of that warping ability that's now in push. Okay, so now we have that sample. There are a few different ways we can manipulate this and work with it. One way is to visit our modes. And right now we're working in a classic mode, which means that when I hold down a pad, it will play through, or if I just tap it, it will just play the initial part of that sample. I also have a one-shot option. So when I go to the one-shot option, if I just hit the pad there, it will play through the complete sample. And then I have this slicing option. This is what is really, for us, a huge new feature that we feel is really going to change how people are sampling and how quick they can get things done. This is a really fast workflow. What I'm able to see now, I'm just going to adjust my start point just slightly to get rid of that, that one slice that I have there. But with slicing, if I adjust the sensitivity here from 100% down to 40, 30, 29 to 20%, all the way down to 0, what I'm adjusting as well is the amount of slices I have in this particular sample. So now I only have one slice. If I increase that sensitivity, you'll see down the bottom here in the left-hand corner that I get additional pads indicating I have more slices. So now I have this basically sliced up for me. Allowing me then to take these samples and make my own sequence out of it. If I want to just play it there, that's fine. What I can also do though is click this convert button and convert it to a drum rack. When I click that now, Live converts what we have in those slices into a drum rack, which now allows me to work with push in the way we designed it for rhythm, where I can select a loop point. I'm going to turn off my metronome there. So I have a 2-bar loop now. I can take a sample and just put it in here. And now I can play a sequence, my own sequence that I've created out of the original sample itself. Okay. There's one other thing I want to show you, and that's still working with samples, but just to show you something that's a little bit more melodic here. So I'm going to go back to my user files. I'm going to go back to my songs and audio, and I'm going to get another song here. That is an a cappella that I'll be able to work with. Okay. Let me take this a cappella here and load it. Now I'm going to have a similar scenario. I'm going to click device here and go back to the waveform, and I'm going to zoom in. But this time I'm working with an a cappella. This might give you a better understanding of the warping itself. So that's the a cappella right there. I want to show you how it used to be with using Simpler, which is what this is working off inside Ableton Live. Let's click Simpler here, and let's just go to our global option, envelopes. You can see a few of the various areas within Simpler itself and get a sense of how detailed that screen is. Now, in the warp option, we actually have a warp on and off. I'm going to turn that to off. And let me just play this for you without the warp on. Let's play it higher. So what's happening is the lower I play it, the slower it plays back. The higher I play it, the quicker I play that. When I adjust it to warp on, Regardless of where I played in the scale that we're in, we are still hearing it at the same tempo, which is really nice because in a scenario like this, it means that I can work with harmonies. Just by holding down those two pads right there, I've created a two-part harmony, or a three-part. Okay. Let's just go back here and revisit just some of these things on the screen really quickly. So again, that waveform, being able to zoom in and out and just get really, really defined when cutting up and slicing our samples. Going through some of these elements within the device itself and being able to view all of these various parameters. Things like filter types, where you actually have these kinds of visual pictures. Various filter circuits here, which are part of the new Simpler, and some various filters that are now available in the new free 9.5 update. Essentially though, what we're offering here now with the new push is the ability not just to do working with rhythm based on your own instruments and working with things like melody and harmony with your own instruments, but actually bring in samples and start to work with audio in whole new ways. The other element as well that we really do want to get across is that with that browser and having all these new options to get into things like user files and access all of your own content, there's also the ability as well to use things like plugins, go into your own plugins and use AU and VSTs directly from Push. So when Push was originally released in 2013, we saw it adopted by all kinds of users. The songwriter, the producer, the performer, the educator. Now in 2015 with the new Push, we really feel like there are new opportunities to explore new ways of using it, particularly in this use of sampling. If you have any more questions regarding Ableton Push, please call up your friendly sales advisor at PSSL or visit PSSL.com. My name's Dave Hillel from Ableton. Thanks for having me.